States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. We can go ahead and do the roll call, please.
Okay, Mrs. Kaiser,
Here.
Mr. Lee,
Here.
Ms. Klug,
Here.
Mr. Schultz,
Here.
Mrs. Justum,
Here.
Mr. Eustruck,
Here.
Mr. Keller,
Here.
Mr. Sikich,
Present.
President Emmons.
Here. Proper notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the open meeting laws of the state of Wisconsin. Do we have any additions or modifications to tonight's agenda?
I do not.
No? Okay. We move on to our public comments for this evening. If you are remote and you are doing public comments, if you could please put your name in the chat, and we will make sure that we can call upon everyone to do that. If you are in person and are looking to make public comments, if you could go up to the podium for public comments, that would be fantastic. We will wait a second to see if there's any takers this evening. All right, Eric Manteau, you'll have up to 3 minutes to address the board. If you could please give your name and your address for the record. And then once you've done that, you can begin your comments.
Thank you very much. Eric Manto, 1135 South 76th Street. I have 3 kids attending school in the district. Now that the kids are back into in-person learning, we need to get back to education. West Allis historically has lagged behind other school districts in our area. In 2019, according to DPI, we had a proficiency of 32.6 in math and a 37.3 in ELA, English Language Arts. Below basic is 34.6 in math and 29 in ELA. So that means about a third of our kids are below basic in math and reading. This should not be acceptable. And where's our focus? I talked to other families on this, and they're seeing a district unwilling until very recently to get the kids to in-person schooling, which is where the learning is more effective. These last few months, it has been about the virus and the response to it, which is understandable, but this has to change. The perception is that the school board is not focused on education. Our kids need education, reading, writing, arithmetic. It's antiquated thinking, sure, but it's also effective. Better education can be tied to higher income and quality of life than just about any other factor. According to niche.com, this district already earns an A for diversity, but a C+ in academics. We should be laser focused on getting our academics scores up. So some questions I have for the board. What is this board going to do to increase focus on education? DPI, that's first. Second, DPI has stated that they will not be putting district scorecards for last year or this year. How is the district tracking our educational progress? 3, can this board show data on failing grades or absences during this last year? I've seen data from Waukesha and Milwaukee, and it's not good. And the reason this should be known is so that we can hone in on exact issues and address them. 4, what else is this board going to do to get us caught up to our neighbors who have been in person the entire school year versus the last few weeks? Conclusion, I believe we all want the same thing, a good education for our kids. Decisions were made in the last year in the want to keep our kids safe, which is laudable. However, their education is now lagging. This board and the education WM needs to plan how we will get caught up. As such, I'm hoping to see more focus on education from this board. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any other public comments, or aren't any other names in the chat? Going once. All right, then we will move on to item 7, our superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. The first thing we have tonight is the legislative update. And so locally, our school board of the school district of West Allis, West Milwaukee et al., the following citizens have been elected to our Board of Education pending the official results of the Board of Canvassers, which are in now. That meeting occurred today, Monday, April 12th, 2021 at 4 p.m. So we can confirm that the newly elected school board members are Jane Carr, Amy Deal, and Brendan Burns. Across the state, face masks on April 1st, 2021 the Wisconsin Supreme Court struck down the statewide mask mandate on Wednesday, blocking Governor Tony Evers from issuing new emergency orders that would require face masks without legislative approval. Nothing in the court's decision or in the resulting invalidation of the governor's state of emergency declaration invalidates or prohibits local government authorities from issuing face covering requirements in circumstances that local government is authorized to exercise control. Importantly, this means that the court's decision has no practical effect on local governments, including public school districts' authority to implement or maintain current face covering requirements. Our face mask requirement remains in place until further notice. And the State Superintendent of Schools on April 6, 2021, Jill Underly was selected as the State Superintendent of Schools. There are no federal updates at this time. So moving on to district recognitions. Oh, and I should have prefaced it by saying there really isn't an update on the return to school plan for everybody for this evening. I apologize, I skipped over that agenda item. As the schools, we are now back into phase 4 and we are in person. And then we have some families that have chosen to remain virtual. So Dr. Lexman did not have any further updates on our return to school plan for this evening. In school board recognitions, Pershing Elementary, we would like to thank and recognize our building substitute, Deb Graff. She is always so flexible and willing to help in any situation. In the music department, special thanks to Mary Pat Michaels, Frank Lloyd Wright, and Lane orchestra teacher and district music curriculum lead for working with the following students. Through the Wisconsin School Music Association, we have Devin Williams and Tiana Long, 8th graders at Frank Lloyd Wright, who are winners of the 2021 WSMA Student Composition Project. They wrote Twilight Sky, a duet for violin and bass, as a choice project last semester and were awarded first place instrument ensemble as well as middle school grades 7 through 8th, division winner, and earned a $200 scholarship as the division winners. Ethan Pollock, who's a 7th grader at Frank Lloyd Wright, was the winner in the 2021 WSMA Student Composition Project, who took first place in the arrangement category for his arrangement of Millie Channel theme. PTA Reflections winners will go on to the national level contest. Elena May, 7th grader at Lane, who received the PTA Council Reflections Award Outstanding Interpretation in the area of literature for her essay on what orchestra family means and her artwork, Kindness Rocks, that she painted and gave to her neighbors and favorite educator last semester to share this kindness with others. And Anna Gregory, who's a 6th grader at Frank Lloyd Wright, who received the PTA Council Reflections Award of Excellence in the area of literature for her short story and violin composition that she also performed entitled Anxiety. The West Allis Central and Nathan Hale Athletics on Saturday, March 20th, 2021, the dance teams from Nathan Hale and West Allis Central qualified for state, making it the first time in the West Allis-West Milwaukee School District history that the teams from our high schools qualified in the same year. Congratulations to these student athletes and their coaches. And those are all listed in the agenda for your review. In our Leadership and Learning Department for Women's History Month, we interviewed 4 amazing women in our district, and we've created videos to celebrate these women that are on our website and featured in our newsletter, and we are actually going to show them right now. Thanks so much for joining us today. We are so excited to celebrate the women in our district who are really contributing to the work we are doing as our pathway to equity being through our deeper learning competencies.
So growing up in school, I was
But I'm also a person who has a kid with disability, literally unsupervised. And so I wanted to work in an environment to help serve students. We're like, right? We're small resources, you have to be your own life. And we stood in line school, but no one could see that. So there was other people who were always, working and still also that's recognize you have of color,
be reflective and say, well, we can do better. Like you were saying, the power of yes. We've got this and we can do better. And that is something I really value about working with you all the time. Because I know if we're missing the mark, you're going to tell me. And that's awesome. Because what we want is to change the world. We want every one of our learners walking out of our doors feeling like they can go out and do whatever they need to and want to and can to contribute back to our society, to our world. So we have some videos from some other colleagues who had some commentary for you. So I'm going to give you that around the impact of the work that you've had on them. Hi, Brittany Scale. I'm Brittany. Hey, Brittany. Hey, Brittany. I just wanted to take some time to let you know why you inspire me. Brittany inspires me every day with her jokes and her positive attitude. She's an amazing advocate for all the kids she works with, and we are so lucky to have her.
Brittany is just like so positive, but factual and firm in her decisions and confident and just so knowledgeable of the field and law. Brittany really inspires me to bring that to my own meetings now that she doesn't have to hold my hand.
So you're always willing to ask questions and to learn as much as you can, and I see that in every meeting and every... It's okay if you get emotional. If you're not comfortable with that, then you will edit out whatever parts you want. But we want
No, it's fine.
I know this is
I'm out to laugh, but I don't want to expect the wrong.
It's not the wrong impression, but this is part of our equity work. You're just willing to ask those questions and
Wow,
willing to
forget
get
about that.
as much as you can out of it.
I love how you're always willing to push back on norms that are creative. And I feel like I have more of a voice in certain spaces because of you, and I love to be this concept in this district. And we're very happy that I had the pleasure of working with you for the past 2 years. You are one of the most intelligent, creative youth that I know. Your sense of humor is fantastic. I love that you are Princess Oh Snap. The jokes that you said, you're witty, you're so quick, and I just think that speaks to your intelligence.
I've had the opportunity to be your mentor from the very beginning of your school psychology career, and I just wanted to let you know how proud I am of who you've become as you've moved in your journey forward as a school psychologist, as well as just finding your own voice as a person.
You put in so much effort into everything that you do. You're always there to help, and you're always willing to try new things. You always keep us smiling and laughing and help to lift us up.
You are truly a lifelong learner, and that's one of the things that inspires me.
Thank you for partnering with me here at Longfellow Elementary, for being someone to bounce ideas off of, and for helping me meet the needs of some of our kiddos here.
You also brighten the light in others, and you're constantly there to credit others for their accomplishments and compliment others for the things that you see. And I appreciate that I get to work with you all the time, and that we've become so close over the last year.
Just find you so brave, courageous, and just an inspiration to all of us.
You have really taught all of us a lot. Thank you so much for being a part of our team, and grateful that we are able to work together to make the world a better place.
So congratulations, and thank you for being so inspiring.
I hope you know how much you are loved and adored. So congratulations. I am so happy and excited for you, and I'm just so grateful you come.
Thanks for everything.
It does make me smile. Like I was, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. So, this is very, very nice. I have to say, sometimes in this job, you just really focus on the day-to-day needs. And I have my little to-do list. I don't really think about the impact. Like I know I'm making an impact, I want to make an impact. In fact, I have like this vision board, I'm going to make an impact. But you never know what the impact will be. Wow, this is pretty awesome.
So, and Brittany, that is exactly why we chose you for this video, because as we think about, you're telling us that your goal as a little girl was to change the world for everyone, but especially for people like you who didn't always feel seen and heard, and you do that, and you do that all the time. And we wanted you to know that from us as a West Dallas West Milwaukee School District, and as well as from your colleagues. That the impact that you're trying to make, you are.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, I'm not sick. Like you said, but that's my job. That's my job. That's what I can say.
Okay, and then we have one other one, Brandon, that celebrates a very important member of our team that's here tonight as well.
Welcome, and thank you for helping us celebrate by being one of the women who really inspires us in the West Dallas West Milwaukee School District. So could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself, and then what made you go into the field of education?
I'm Beth Kaler. I'm the Director of Communication and Community Relations.
My name is Ela Adoption. This is my second year teaching at Central High School.
I'm Celia Saban. I'm the lead social worker here and other duties. I think how I found social work was really the kind of training that I got as a young person. So the life training that I accepted, right? So you get a lot that you accept certain kinds.
I wanted to be a teacher since as far as I can remember. I think the first day I remember at school, I was probably kindergarten or first grade. And looked at my teacher, she was writing on the board, and I'm like, that's what I want to do.
I've been in the district 28 years. I was a teacher, English teacher at the high school level, and then a vice principal at Hale and Central, and principal at Frank Lloyd Wright Intermediate School, and now finishing out my career as a director. And it's always been a real honor to be with West Dallas for the time that I have been, and to have been a former student.
You understand that things like plants and creatures and humans do better when they're nourished and nurtured. And you can't control the sunshine, the rain, or terrible illnesses that happen to your animals or anybody. But you can do what you can to do the best for the things in front of you. And then you have to adjust. And you have to keep adjusting, and you have to keep making decisions that are really essential. And I think all that goes right into the lane of social work.
When you are working with children, any time someone isn't achieving academically or social, emotional growth, you feel like that one child that makes a difference, and it hurts. So all along the challenges have been, what can I do that can impact students as a whole, but what can I do for that individual as well? So we can't always think on that macro level. We always have to get right in and do some of that work that impacts just the individual student.
And, school has always been my rescue. I've always, I have problems at home, I go to school and study. Teachers wouldn't know about it, but they would always take me in and tutor me after school. My parents both, neither of them graduated middle school even. I was born in Lebanon, and it was different days then. And so my teachers helped me throughout. And it's kind of like giving back right now. Like, I have to be a good teacher so I can be that person that they were to me. Once we start working on the projects, we start getting to know each other, and then they understand, what do they help out, being good at math, and also very close.
We had some other friends who wanted to help celebrate safety today, so I'm going to share something with you. This video is my way of saying thanks. Thank you so much for being you. You have been an inspiration over the last 5 years. To me, your strength and your sense of humor are really something I appreciate about you.
Where people perceive this mentorship, she embraces each think she can continue to grow and nurture throughout her time.
Excellent. Love orchids.
Hey, Beth.
Hi, Beth.
Just a few words about my friend Beth Kaler. Hey, Beth.
Too emotional.
In honor of you during March Foods History Month, and believe me, in the last 6 years, you've made quite a bit of history.
Every day I appreciate Beth as she has a drive to better our school community. And her realm that oftentimes means documenting our processes and procedures, which I very much respect and share a mutual passion for. For all of us who guided as a teacher, for those of us who influenced as an administrator or mentor, and on behalf of all of your personal friends, you've challenged, encouraged, and supported us toward being the best we can be.
Well,
Feel really happy. We wanted
it's an amazing thing, and I can't thank you and all the people that put this together. What a tremendous gift.
Well, thank you. A number of people you have inspired with your leadership and your humor and your friendship and your time in West Dallas and long before your time working for our school is felt, and it's felt everywhere around us all the time. So today we just wanted to take some time to hear about you and learn about you and celebrate you as well.
When she first came to Central and talking about her interview for the job, just the sincerity about how passionate she was about her teaching, and how she was really concerned about the equity piece and really to do what she had to do to make sure that she considered that very important in her profession. Sometimes sharing ideas with students is very important. Staff, collaboration, presenting from staff, still going in and sharing, collaborating, whether it's small or large.
Thank you so much. That is amazing. Can you share that with me?
Yeah, here we will share that with you. We just wanted to take the chance to thank you for being an inspiration to our students as a strong teacher and a strong woman, and especially a strong woman mathematician, and we need more of those in the world.
Thank you so
So
much.
thank you on behalf of all of us in the West Dallas Western
Thank you
School
so
District.
much.
Thank you, Brandon. So those are part of the video series that we've been producing. Our first two came out around some of our equity work, and then this series was around celebrating some of the women that support the work around us each and every day. And then there'll be some new videos coming out in the next month around our project-based learning work, as well as some of the experiences that some of the people that we get the opportunity to work with each day have had both in and out of our schools and in their lives in our community. So keep a lookout for those videos to keep coming. From Recreation and Community Services, we'd like to thank and recognize Bo Benner, Linda Gritzmacher, and Amanda Switchenberg for their leadership in organizing the WAWM Be Active team. The team participated in the Be Active Wisconsin Community Fitness Challenge. The challenge was a competition with over 40 other communities across the state of Wisconsin to see who could be the most physically active for the month of March. The WAWM Be Active team led the challenge with the most registered participants, and we are very proud and excited to announce that we have finished in first place with the most recorded active minutes on average. Bo, Linda, and Amanda's outreach and marketing efforts are what made this event in our community such a success. The WAWM Be Active team was featured on CBS 58 Morning News on Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. We'd like to thank all of the community members, district staff, and friends that participated and look forward to defending our title in 2022. So that is the end of the district recognitions. And we don't have any other updates or information items at this time.
Great. Thank you, Deidre. And I think after just watching those inspirational videos, I just think we should be done. Nothing else is going to top that this evening. So I'm motivated. I don't know about anybody else, and touched and just honored that we have those women in our community, and just proud to say that they're colleagues of ours. So very excited about that. All right, moving on to our board reports for this evening. Our item 8.1, the review of the board calendar. So tonight, Monday, April 12th at 6 p.m., we've got obviously our regular Board of Education meeting immediately following this. We do have a workshop this evening for college and career readiness on the achievement gap reduction update. There is no board workshop next Monday, April 19th. That has been canceled. The next board meeting will be Monday, April 26th at 6 p.m. Regular Board of Education meeting with our newly elected board members taking their oath of office. We'll then have a workshop on financial stability and efficiency with the proposed 2021-2022 budget and preliminary tax levy number 1. And immediately following, there will be a closed session. Then on Monday, May 10th, starting at 6 p.m., there'll be a regular Board of Education meeting. We also have some board committee reports for this evening in item 8.2. First, we have our Communications and Community Relations Committee update. Mr. Sikich.
Yes, I'm going to be talking about 3 topics tonight: our logo, district website, and the Neola policies, specifically the 9,000 ones. First topic, the logo. Our key details is we are proud to introduce our new, I say that again, new West Allis, West Milwaukee school district logo. You may now open up that envelope that is on your desk. With a special thanks to Nathan Chow, the creative director, and at the design firm Foundry.
Ooh, I like it.
And I would direct your attention to one of the TVs for more information. I don't have anything on that.
Oh, it's on the back. No, right here.
Oh, I didn't open mine up. Duh.
Our logo ties in with the colors of the city of West Allis and the village of West Milwaukee. It features the bridge that signifies our mission and vision. We are the bridge to creating experiences that build community and empower learners so they can live life on their own terms. Our logo kickoff will be during the return to school week in fall and during our 2021-2022 school year. Plans are underway to update our logo in signage, print, and online. Special thanks to the Board of Education Communication and Community Relations Committee, Jeff Sikich, Gary Schultz, Kristen Kaiser, Tess Thomas, Beth Kaler, Marty Lexman, and to our designer, Foundry Creative Director, Nathan Chow. And this is what it looks like in many different forms that you'll start to see. What our district mission and equity beliefs will begin to look like. What billboards and print will look like. How our automobiles and vans will be branded. And how various items of sway will be made available this fall. And there is our new district logo.
Jeff, before you go on with your committee report, I would just like to make a comment that the new logo has been a labor of love of Beth's for quite some time, and she has put a tremendous amount of effort into getting us from the logo that we currently have to something that truly represents our community. So thank you very much to Beth for leading the charge on all of that work.
I just want to say I was really hoping the committee wasn't going to pick this one so we could steal it for West Milwaukee.
Too bad.
And then Jeff has some more.
Our second topic is the district website. Key details for this is we approved moving forward with a new website provider, Final Site. This provider best met our evaluation criteria. The cost, it's not the most expensive, and we've budgeted for the setup. The ongoing fee is the same as our current website annual cost. The quality of design options are on trend and will provide our website visitors with a visual experience. The quality of the function, very streamlined editing interface, responsive design for all website visitors, Google integrations including calendars and single sign-on, and built-in accessibility checker. security of hosting environment, uptime of 99.9%, and secure cloud-based hosting. Our next action on this topic is the process of getting a contract in place. We will begin the upfront design process and mitigation of our online materials. We plan to have our new website available at the start of the 21-22 school year. And a special thanks to Tess Thomas, Bruce Heisler, and Kevin Clark for their research, help, and work to put this proposal together. Third topic is the Neola, the 9,000 relations. The key details: on Monday, March 22nd, 2021, Jeff Sikich made a motion to refer the 9,000 relation policies to the Board of Education for review and renewal, and approval, and Gary Schultz seconded the motion. The motion passed. Our next action is we are ready to move forward with our Neola 9,000 policies. That finishes my report.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jeff. And thank you to the committee for that wonderful work. Looking forward to seeing the logo implemented in all around our community. It's fabulous, and especially on the swag. Most looking forward to the swag. All right, our next committee update for this evening for employment, engagement, and culture, Mr. Keller.
All right, on our last meeting, we talked about two key topics. One is staffing. Contracts are being distributed this week, Wednesday, to schools and delivered by principals to their staff on Thursday. Those contracts will be due on May 11th and will be picked up from the schools on May 12th. In terms of the compensation committee, there will be a meeting tomorrow at 4:30. Deidre will be presenting the idea of micro-credentialing with the compensation committee. And on April 20th, Caitlin will be meeting with the compensation committee and we'll be doing a budgeting 101 session on fiscal stability.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to our consent agenda for the evening. There are 3 items. Item 9.1 is the approval of minutes from the March 22nd meeting. Item 9.2 is the employment summary, and item 9.3 is the supplementary contracts. Does anyone need anything separated? If not, we would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we do have to say, though, very quickly that we just spent that wonderful couple minutes watching those lovely videos, and 2 of our people in those videos were on our retirement summary for this evening. So very sad to see that, but looking forward to having them go into that next chapter and loving that next phase of their lives that they've been working for so long. So bittersweet, to say the least. All right, we have our action items for this evening. Item 10.1 is the approval of the CISA number 1 contract for 2021 and 2022. Deidre, is that you?
Yep.
All right.
So the CISA contract is an annual approval for us. Each year we review the services that are available through CISA 1, which is our local cooperative education agency. And this year we had continued our basic membership with them. We're in something called the School Improvement Network and the Regional Support Network. So that's a network of people around the area that are all in CISA 1 that get together and talk about curriculum and instruction standards, get together and talk about things that are happening in student services and in mental health. And then we also, this last year, joined the Mathematical Leaders Network, which was a new opportunity through CISA 1, and we've seen some great benefit from the collaboration that we've seen with them. Other line items in this contract typically are we contract out for audiology services, as we don't have enough students who require that service to make it worthwhile to employ somebody in-house. We contract that with CISA 1. And then we have a few students for whom their needs are better met at a tuition-paying facility through CISA 1. And so there's a couple of line items for tuition for those individual students who attend those programs. But that makes up the sum and total of our CISA 1 contract.
Questions for Deidre? Deidre, how does this compare to last year's contract?
It's a good question. It's pretty similar to last year's contract. The Mathematical Leaders Network is new, and then the tuition-paying seats are the same number of seats as we had last year, just in different programs. And so we've been able to transition some students successfully back into our district programs, and then we've had other students with different needs who required some of those services. So we continually review those to assess whether or not that's a student who we can return to district, or whether or not that's a student whose needs are best met in the setting that that's occurring.
Great. Any other comments or questions? If not, we look for a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes. Great. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to item 10.2, the approval of the Neola policies as a second reading for the zeros, we call them, the aughts, the 1,000s and the 9,000s. Is that Beth, Deidre?
I think that is it. Beth, do you have something you want to add to that one, or are we just moving forward?
We're just moving forward to approve. I didn't know if there was any
I think so,
commentary
yeah.
that we needed to add to that before we.
I don't think
This is a
there's been
second
any
reading, so.
updates since the first reading. So the
Okay.
rest of the policies have been reviewed and vetted by Richard, and so this is really the formality of the second read with the time in between the first read and the second read.
Fantastic. All right, any other commentary from board members before we move forward on that? Noah?
You said there were no changes from the.
There have been no changes since the first read, no.
All right, so then we would look, so this is for the zeros, the 1,000s, and the 9,000s. We would look for a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any additional comments or questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, everybody. All right, getting those done, getting really close to the end there with those. Good work. Again, that's the labor of love from all of us from the last couple of years, so glad to see those get through to a lot of those get to the finish line. All right, so that concludes the meeting, action meeting part of the evening. We'll move on to our workshop. Item 11.1 is our college and career readiness workshop for the achievement gap reduction. Mr. Hinkle.
Good evening.
You have
Is
to-
it okay if I'm over here? Are you guys okay with that? I know it's kind of weird, but.
I think you have to talk into the mic, though, because otherwise they won't be able to hear you. So,
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So, thank you for having me. Our annual achievement gap reduction kind of mid-year update as required by our grant. And it's a little bit out of timeline where we usually are, just because of some things that I'll talk about, obviously, in our return to school plan and how those dates align with our grant requirements and things like that. So typically we do this in mid-February, but here we are in April. So just some things as some refreshers is that for our grant requirements, this usually we do a fall and a winter map, but looking at in conversations with our leadership teams, doing MAPS tests from home would have been incredibly difficult. So we kind of changed we shifted some things a little bit and shifted our timeline as the return to school plan came back in and really kind of played out. So we're calling it like first MAPS window and second MAPS window. So, and this was really when we came back to the hybrid model. So I'll talk about that in a little bit. So we had our students had the opportunities to take some MAPS tests when they came back into the hybrid model. Then we do our school board reporting, and then we'll go into second MAPS window here within the next few weeks, and then we'll do another report out to the school board at the end of the year. And our important dates, as we usually have, is on October 5th. They took third Friday count and low income pupil count, and then we get our payments. And then here at the end of the semester, which is really what this report is tonight, we report out our strategies and performance objectives and success metrics. And then you can see our other payment dates there from DPI. And then at the end of the year, June 30th, 2021, I fill out a report for DPI for all of our schools participating in AGR, which is all of our elementary schools. And then on August 13th, we fill out an end of the year financial report once everything has been cleared from the previous budget year. Our allocation this year was $2,621.04 per low income pupil. This was up about $240 a student. So they take this, there's a formula at the state level, it's about $109 million, and then all of the participants in the AGR program, they take the total number of pupils that are low income, and then they just divide that out evenly, and then we get our allocation from there. It usually comes like late October, early November. We received about $2.9 million. We got about $300,000 more this year than we did last year, and our low income count was 1,132 students, which was up 16 from last year. So what needs to be measured? These were contracts actually were up for a renewal for our AGR contract at the end of this year. So this contract's been in place since 2016. So we are starting to put our team together and writing those with new goals for the 5-year contract coming forward from 2021 to 2026. So our K-5 through 2nd grade, we currently use the NWA MAP skills checklist to determine our baseline data and growth. Obviously comparing, usually fall to spring, but here we'll go test 1 to test 2. And really our purpose is to assess the knowledge of a specific skill before and after teaching. We get some short-term data cycles and we get some coaching cycles that they can use from that evidence and that data. And then our 3rd grade uses our typical MAPS test, which, as you guys are familiar with, that's an adaptive test that assesses achievement and standards of aligned content. So in looking at some comparisons here, let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So when we look at previous year, last year in the winter until what I call test 1 for 2021, as expected, you can see a little bit of a slight decline there, but I think there's some real strong areas to celebrate. And when you look at even some of those, like I'm just looking at the first column right there, you have last year for phonological awareness, which is a specific skill, at 13.6% of our kids. Now remember, this is the 81st, like the kids are in the 81st percentile. This is not like the 50th percentile, the median, the norm, anything like that. Kids are getting in that 81st percentile. So we're at about 13.6% of our students met this goal in the winter last year. This would have been probably January or early February when students took this test. And right now we're at about 6%. So, but when you look at the opportunities for growth with getting our kids back in school and having them attend 5 days a week, I would expect that growth would probably take a pretty rapid incline. In addition, when you look at that, I kind of broke it down. I've always been a numbers person, so I'm looking at if you have 3 kindergartners from each building kind of increasing their skills as they're taking those tests, we're right back to where we were last year. And like I said, there's some areas when you look at down here in 1st grade, some of our 1st grade math, like we're still really high. And even outperforming in some of our 2nd grade groups, we're literally right there in terms of performance metrics that we saw last year. So I think that is a real feather in our cap for our teachers who work with students for nearly 6 months in an online environment. And these students were coming back due to, I'll talk about the grant timelines in a little bit, but most of our students who took this, they were coming back into hybrid, and some of them were taking these tests like the next week because of our grant requirements per DPI. So it was not necessarily an ideal situation that instructionally that we would want is having students come back and then taking some of these, some of our skills checklists, but per grant requirements, that's kind of what we needed to do. So I think there's some really strong celebrations there in some of our areas. And the grade out areas, what we did was we looked at some of our data from last year. As you can see, reading letter ID, we had almost 88% of our students were at that 81st percentile for our skills checklist. So we took that out just to save some time, because some of these skills do take 10-15 minutes per kid, and only seeing some of the students 2 days a week. We did remote testing in some situations where teachers were working on in the hybrid, they were working on those Wednesdays to set up individual times with families. Some of our deeper learning coaches were testing kids at home. Some schools had set up testing centers to have kids come in and have that experience. And so we cut out one of our skills checklists at each grade level to kind of save some of that time for kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade, as some of those are obviously precursor skills and would have been identified through other assessment metrics. Whether or not, like I look at letter ID, whether or not students knew their letters. Because obviously we're not getting to phonological awareness and phonemic ID without letter ID. So that's why those areas are grayed out. Yeah. Is that big enough for you?
Yeah, I can see it. Just had a question, I guess. Do we know if we were unique in not testing our students on this in comparison to other districts that were in similar in-person versus hybrid versus full virtual situations?
Sorry, did you say not testing them?
Yeah, so we didn't evaluate the grayed out areas, correct?
Yeah.
So do we know if we're unique in our district?
No,
if
there was,
other people did the same, other districts did similar?
Yeah, like like Deidre was mentioning, as part of our CSIC contract, I am a member of the DAC, which is the District Assessment Coordinators, and you have there's a lot of districts that touch us and ones that are one or two away from us who had some real concerns about testing variation in terms of, especially in the in-home setting. So they're like, yeah, we saw a spike in some of our numbers, and some people don't use the same metrics as we do or the same test with the skills checklist. But they were seeing kids who might have been in the bottom quartile all of a sudden jump up to the 75th percent. There's some districts that were sharing stories of they could hear whispers in kids' ears. And so a lot of districts are really questioning their validity of what the data that they're seeing.
And no, we wouldn't have a comparison to say which tests other districts maybe chose not to do or to do, because every district sets how they're going to measure this differently. So anybody who participates in the AGR grant, we set a contract for the 5 years. So the first contract was a contract that Adam and I had inherited from our previous administration, and now this time is the time we get the opportunity to work with some of our teachers and our leaders to say, which things do we actually think move the needle on overall student achievement to make sure that those are the ones we're assessing. We didn't eliminate any of the assessments where we know we would likely were going to get some data that our kids were still struggling a bit in some areas, right? So like reading phonemic ID at 5K, there's only 9% of our students that are meeting that marker at this time. Last year at this time, it was 14.2. So that was not a test that we wouldn't even thought about not getting the data from. But a test where consistently since we've been issuing this, 80 to 90% of our students are scoring in the appropriate percentiles, like reading letter ID. That is why the team said, okay, that's probably a test. We could know that our students are making reasonable progress towards that goal without issuing another lengthy assessment to students. And for our teachers especially, and for our families and for our learners who are just adjusting to the stamina it takes to get through a full day of school again, it just didn't seem to issue any, to give more tests than we absolutely felt like we needed to collect the correct data. Didn't seem wise.
So for the second test that's going to be administered, are you also not going to be evaluating those grayed out areas?
Correct, right, Adam?
Correct.
Yes.
Yeah,
because we won't have a comparison.
Like spring data for last year, like for letter ID, is 99%. Like there was 6 students. Well, I guess it wouldn't be last year. It would have been 2019 data. 6 students out of nearly 500 were at the 81st marker for that.
So it's reasonable to assume that just without even assessing that area, that most of our students are mastering that skill, and that's why that was an assessment that we determined that we would not issue this year. Going forward, that's part of what the team of teachers and administrators and coaches that Adam is working with will say, are these the right measures to help us know that we're applying the right skills in those early grades to ensure that we are closing that achievement gap, which is what the acronym stands for, is achievement gap reduction.
Okay. So 5K just concerns me because some of these students we may have never seen before. Because they wouldn't have been in 4K, and then this is the first time they may be having formal schooling, and having such a disparity for students that may have never been in school before, it sets them back from the beginning. And so if we're going to be evaluating this way, that's how we're going to evaluate for our second round too. I'm hoping I'm also going to hear about some things we're going to try to do to be able to provide catch-up services for some of those students that may be identified at their teacher level that who aren't able to do the letter ID and are also not able to do the other things because they can't do the letter ID, as an example.
Yep. Yeah, and that we do have some information towards the latter part of the presentation where we'll talk about some of the things that we're doing to address just that.
Okay, thank you.
So again, is there, like Deidre said, in our In our 2016 to 2021 contract, we have instructional coaching that is selected as one of our strategies. And so, that really looks like that coaching and those feedback cycles for teachers, looking at that data. So as soon as, the teachers were able to get it in their hands, because this has really been probably the first normed piece of data that our teachers have really received in almost a year and a half on students. We have local district assigned assessments and some things that we've created, but in terms of what that experience is in terms of evidence collection or data collection for every student across every building, this really would have been the first piece since probably January of 2020. So now coaches are able to look at that data and they're able to see like, okay, where are we planning? They're using strategies that they have in their coaching toolbox and saying like, okay, how are we planning our small groups? How are we being effective with our time? How are we catching those students up like Noah had just talked about? So, and then, what does the teacher support look like? So we're focusing on that small group instruction, focus on specific skill targets. I think this is probably, when we look at those first and second grade, some of those pieces where, students had been with us before and we've seen them face to face and now coming through hybrid and now being in phase 4. Some of the small groups, I think that teachers were running in Zooms were really what led us to those, almost even markers for our evidence, because they were realizing, even in October, that, if I grab 5 kids in a Zoom and we are going to try and work on a specific skill, and then I'm grabbing 5 kids in another Zoom and working on those specific skills, those were and skills that had translated, not only from their own classroom in 2020, but then using that in Zoom, I think was really, where we were able to see those achievement levels stay the same or within, like one standard deviation of where we're at. And then for student support, so those kids are really getting, once we get some data pieces on them, they're really getting an opportunity to set some goals. We know what specific skills that we need to work on with them, and so we can perform that effective instruction. And then from our innovation coaches, which are also part of our grants, they're all continuing to work on personalized professional development for staff, working on coaching cycles and feedback with teachers. We use that student-centered coaching model, which all of our innovation coaches, deeper learning coaches, and literacy specialists went through some training last year. And then they're also using that co-teaching strategy in addition to, again, the literacy specialist using co-teaching, co-planning, and co-serve, and then that student-centered coaching. So some adjustments or some pivots that we've made in 2021. We made it through an audit, so we got audited on the AGR grant this past year, and thank you to Caitlin and her team and my good friend now Jeff Borland, as we were able to put a lot of processes around our reporting. This is the first, even though this is year 5 of the grant, this is the first year that we had ever been through a full audit, so we were able to really kind of engage in our processes. Now Jeff and I meet like every 2 months typically to make sure that all the pieces in the business department are good and then all the instructional pieces are good as well. So that was very exciting. And like I said, this was our test window for this year. We started right when kids came back from virtual due to our grant structure. I had a lot of conversations with the grant manager at DPI around what I felt was the best, and obviously probably our whole district, what we felt was instructionally best for our students, but also still trying to meet those grant timelines that they are, obviously there's laws that they have to adhere to as well, as many of these grants are guided by state statute. So we did get a little leeway, and we were able to at least not have to test students in virtual, and we were able to get that wiggle room and test the students when they came back to our hybrid option. So we also made a small adjustment that the checklists and the maps window is open at all times. So if there was some, maybe a student took a test in test 1, maybe it was the phonemic awareness, and they weren't at that 81st marker. If a student or a teacher was working on maybe a 4-week small group, they're able to test that student right away. Typically, we kind of have these 6-week windows, but we said that they can kind of do that at any time. And then based on our employee feedback, like we were talking about before, we eliminated some tests in order to shorten that time that we saw those really high success rates in. We wanted to keep the rigor of our curriculum and our instructional practices. We wanted to keep the rigor. So instead of taking out, one of the tests that, maybe the students typically in this window were around that 13 or 6% range. We wanted to keep that rigor and ultimately have people understand that is our goal, is to get our students there, rather than taking out that test and keeping the test in which 99% of our students are ultimately successful in that winter or spring window. There's also been some new norms that NWA, so the company that runs MAPS, they come out with new norms every 5 years, and the 2020 ones came out, and obviously they haven't changed due to COVID because they don't have enough data points on that. They did come out with a white paper in November that was talking about typically over, I think it was about 4 million students. They had seen about a 5% decrease across the nation in reading scores and about a 10% decrease across the nation in math. And we also, one of our kind of pieces is we set the goal, because typically what I do in the MAPS is I set it to the test date. So if we were testing in winter, I set that to be about 16 weeks of instruction. So however long our kids have been in school is typically when we set those weeks of instruction. Knowing that kids were testing up until April 1st, we set the goal at the spring window. So typically maybe, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head with the new 2020 norms, but let's say for reading in 3rd grade, the fall goal might be 203, the winter goal might be 208, and the spring goal might be 210. We set that at the 210 marker because we are kind of encroaching on this spring time. So there's a little bit of a higher bar, and then in addition, also, we are at the 61st percentile, which is the upper 2 quantiles according to MAPS. It's not the 50th percentile or the normative data. We are really pushing that rigor and having that at the 61st percentile. And then really, this is our measuring tool for our evidence of learning. Like I talked about, this is probably the first piece of data that we've gotten from almost all of our students, K through 3rd grade in almost a year and a half. And then, like we talked about, Deidre was talking about before, is really in terms of our adjustments and how do we address this problem is we are increasing our summer school invites, and we're looking at changing some of our summer school programming. So typically in the past, we've had certain invitations go out to certain students for summer school, but now we are extending that opportunity for all of our students.
And although enrollment has been down this year, we've maintained the number of reading specialists that we employ. We've added social workers. We've added supports to buildings. So although we're serving fewer students, we're doing that with the same, if not more, staff than we were at this time last year to hopefully quickly be able to address some of those pieces where we're seeing a lag in some of the skills.
And then moving forward, like we mentioned, that we are applying again for this grant. This will be for 2021 to 2026. And we are looking at making some shifts in some of the strategies that we had previously selected in our previous contract. So right now we use instructional coaching, but we are also looking at, as I know that you guys have heard before, we're looking at creating a staffing plan to allocate some of those funds in order to keep some of our structures and our class sizes at 18:1 or under. And this is obviously the allocation, as much as we look at it from a district perspective, our allocations are really per school. So it's really, that staffing plan really looks at the school level, and that's based on our free and reduced lunch enrollment numbers at each one of those schools. And we will continue our coaching cycles for staff members to create that personalized professional development plan. We're still using our student-centered coaching model with all of our deeper learning coaches, our innovation coaches, and our literacy specialists. And I think one of the most important pieces moving forward and the work that I will be, like Deidre had mentioned with some of our deeper learning coaches, our administration and teachers, is to create assessments that are a true collection tool for our evidence of success. And what that looks like at a local level, for what that means for our kids, and how we can best integrate that into regular instructional practice versus having something that is often seen as an addition, an add-on, something extra on the plate.
And then Caitlin and I have also been, in addition to some of those things, problem solving. How do we use some of the ESSER funds that will be issued for next year in order to, part of that money is dedicated towards learning loss across the nation. So we've been starting to problem solve what will that look like for us. Shifting some of the staff into AGR allowed us two things. One, to better utilize the funds in AGR aligned to our equity non-negotiables, as we talked about when we did staffing. But it also allowed us what would have been a reduction of a total of 14 staff, actually as a district, have us increasing 17 teachers. So although our enrollment numbers aren't up, we will be increasing staff overall as a school district, and most of those positions will go into those early learning grades, because we know, like you were saying, Noah, if you get behind at that early learning grade, then catching up is a full-time job after that. In addition, we also are using some of the dollars we have available in our current budget to do a new 4K through 5 ELA adoption. It has been an embarrassing number of years since we have adopted a core resource in ELA for our elementary schools. Some of our teachers are nodding about that. Yes, that is true. And we are making sure that we are using ones that are very well vetted and researched, that are culturally responsive and reflective of the demographic and the community, the beautiful, diverse community in which we serve, but also have a highly effective phonics program, because that is something sorely missing from our 4K through 5th grade ELA programming, is a consistent phonics program that we use across our schools. So that work is all in the works right now, and we should have something brought forward to the board for adoption. There's a panel of teachers that are working with me each week. That's what many of those boxes you see in the corner are our samples that we have to dig into pretty soon here, that are full of text and very fun things for teachers and students to play with. And so that will come forward to the board in June, as we know we need some consistent practices around some of those things that are going to create the difference for students. And then the last thing is we are also working on adopting a new progress monitoring tool. So right now that's very school dependent. So what we are using to progress monitor, meaning doing those quicker checkpoints than waiting till a big state assessment or a big district-wide assessment. We need something that measures skills more in real time and then aligns some suggested resources or support to those pieces. And so we have another team working on choosing a consistent progress monitoring tool for us across all of our school sites that can be used as early as 4K and be used all the way up through 12th grade, so that we've just got a more consistent way of tracking and monitoring without our teachers having to go and stretch through and make common assessments or do some of those pieces. We're looking for a tool that consistently does that both for reading and for math. And while we have some that do a good job with it with reading, we do not have great progress monitoring tools in math. So there's a team right now that are looking to adopt something that will be brought forward as part of our spring adoptions for next fall. Any questions?
I was waiting for more.
No. I know,
Yeah, you're right.
and not have
You shouldn't have gone
handouts
second.
with a fancy
Yeah.
new logo.
Yes.
That really should have ended it this evening. Any questions for us around some of the things that we're working through?
Because you kind of let the cat out of the bag with regards to the proposal adoption for the,
Yep.
for the resource, will that then go into effect in the fall?
Yes.
And there'll be obviously training and, time and everything built in the summer for staff to adjust and adapt and ask questions and train and all of those things.
Correct. It is about the fastest adoption I think we've ever done
Mhm.
in the history of our school district, but the committee, I have representation from all 11 elementary schools. We have teachers that Our classroom teachers, we have some specialists, we have reading specialists and teachers who work with our students who are English language learners and GCT and to have students with special needs. And all of them together are so anxious to get their hands on a consistent resource that we're really confident that we've narrowed it down to 2. And we are confident that we'll have one ready to go by June 1st for adoption by our board. And then we'll also be bringing forward, while we're at that, not that it relates to AGR, but 612 science, which again is embarrassingly out of date, and 612 social studies for the texts that core resources that we haven't adopted in the last couple of years. So it is a busy spring in the Leadership and Learning Department, trying to bring forward the resources that we're definitely going to need, that we've needed for some time, that thankfully to Caitlin and our team and our business office and our whole district, our finances in order to be able to provide that resource to our teachers and our students.
Wonderful. Other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
If students are evaluated and are found to be, lacking in certain skills and they're identified this year, so maybe in the second MAPS assessment, we don't see the growth that we're expecting to see. And we can ask them to come to summer school, encourage them to come to summer school. And I know we're looking to provide some extra supports to be able to provide people transportation and things like that, and childcare for teachers as well, to be able to help and encourage people to be able to expand summer school. But if all those things still don't work out and the student doesn't come to summer school, some of these things I think might help with them, but do we have other plans, I guess, if there's people that are identified, especially in those earlier grades, because it snowballs, to be able to try and catch them up? I know maybe with more staff we can provide more one-on-one time with them. Is there anything else that we're looking at?
Yeah, well, we're always looking at whatever we can get our hands on that we need to for our learners. And so we have a couple of schools that actually work with Reading Corps, so then they have some specialized interventions at those sites. In addition to the other things you talked about with summer school, Shelley is going to be able to provide aftercare for summer school so that it's actually a full day. Because the barrier for a lot of our families is that they don't have somebody to drop the student off at 8 in the morning and pick them up at noon and then watch them in the afternoons. And daycares won't usually take somebody for a half day and all of those pieces. So we are currently working, Caitlin and I are meeting together with the food service team and recreation and Frone to make sure we get all the membership counts right on Thursday, to really push for our learners to be able to come to summer school and really encourage it. That'd be for then they can come for early in the morning, we'll serve breakfast, they'll have their summer school time, they can stay for lunch, and then Shelley would, for a nominal fee to families, that is far cheaper than any daycare in our area, be able to stay for aftercare, and then she'll provide services on Fridays and days that we're not in summer school. So hopefully those pieces all will attract more and more families to come to summer school. We also had a recommendation from our elementary school leaders that the reason lots of kids don't come to summer school is because our buildings are unbearably hot in the summer.
Yes.
And they're super uncomfortable. So we are also centralizing summer school so that it's at 3 schools that are air conditioned. So I'm going to make it as appealing as possible and invite over and over again, as much as I can, any student who would like to participate in summer school. We're opening up everyone to be able to participate, which is not typically how we normally do it. And then for those students who we don't see, that's part of where our social work team has been really active, because we've been doing quite a few home visits on the kids that we want to make sure we're connecting to, that we're reaching out to. We're following up now on all of our attendance procedures for students that we really haven't seen much of this year or enough of this year that likely then wouldn't probably come to summer school because their attendance this year for a variety of reasons wasn't great. And then come in the fall, we'll be back at our consistent progress monitoring tools so we can catch those things right away when school starts. And then intervention plans as needed for both push and support to the classroom, as well as some additional pull-out support should we need it. So we are looking to maintain the number of reading specialists that, again, we currently employ, although typically we'd be going down 2 to 3 based on declining enrollment, simple calculation normally. So we're looking to maintain those positions, as well as, like I said, Caitlin and I had a meeting today for what we would do with the ESSER funds to provide some more supports to classrooms and to schools to be sure that our learners are connecting to school and then getting right in on going through whatever resources they need to be successful in the classroom. So we're leaving our supports in special education similar to how we are staffed this year, although our number will be down, as well as additional teacher support through AGR. So I believe that we've got a lot of good things in place to catch those things. And then, as we always do, if that's not enough support, the beauty of having some ESSER funds for the next couple of years is that we will have a little bit more latitude to be able to add some things to our programming in the short term that hopefully help us kind of get caught up and even ahead of the game so that we can keep that projection moving forward.
When will we have some summer school numbers, like people who have signed up? When is that open?
Summer school will be open as soon as I can get all of the information finished this week with the last of the meetings. And then I had to confirm that those locations will work with facilities and food service and transportation and all of those people. So as soon as that information is out, the schools are going to do a sign up and a real personal contact with each family to just say, hey, did you know this was an option? We're going to have some really cool flyers and graphics. So that stuff is all to be slated to be out to families in the community by May 1st so that we can start getting, because I'll need to know how many staff I need to employ for summer school. So we're hoping to get a pretty quick turnaround on some enrollments for summer school so that we've got an idea of then where we might need to realign some of the supports if for some reason the families aren't able to participate in the summer to get that enrichment opportunity, how we go into the fall. A lot of the research right now is really indicating what you don't want to do is do a lot of intervention. You actually want to keep pushing forward with acceleration, which is very much so in line with our push-in model, where our reading specialists and our GCT coaches and our innovation coaches and our special ed coaches and everyone else comes into the classroom to provide as much support as possible. And that's what the current research would tell you is the best way to make up some of the gaps. It's not to pull kids out of the classroom more and more to try to front load those skills, because what happens then is you close one gap and create another all the time. So you want the longevity of those gaps by adding as much support to the classroom as is needed in those situations.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Other comments or questions? It sounds like a very robust plan for summer school and a lot of work and a lot of effort and a lot of engagement with our learners. And thank you to our staff who are going to be involved and all the sacrifice that goes with that as well. So it is not, it doesn't go unnoticed. So thank you for that, and thank you to everyone who is going to be participating. And for families that are listening, hopefully they'll consider being involved, because as we've learned this year, school fills a gap on a lot more levels than I think people realized. And so maybe this summer people will be able to have some of that back and take advantage of this to continue to move forward. So,
yeah, and
fantastic.
our focus in summer school for families that are listening is not just all academic, it's also a lot of project-based learning and a lot of opportunities to explore and grow in different ways and re-socialize again in some of those pieces, which we've heard feedback from our families all year has been a need. So we are trying to blend a lot of really solid reading support in the summer, and we're actually going to bring in a different reading resource that's designed for summer school for this summer. Some math, I'm still looking for just the right option for that, and then also some time to really be diving in the inquiry process and have a lot of fun. Because the kids that were struggling this year, you know, they missed those fun parts of school, so we're trying to build a summer school that's really about fun and learning and engagement and being empowered all over again.
Wonderful. Noah?
I'm sorry, I thought of something else. And this is probably not going to be fun to talk about. Heaven forbid that COVID-19 becomes a problem again
Yes.
in the summer.
Yes.
And we have all these grand plans for summer school, trying
Yep.
to get people up. Do we have plans if we can't congregate like we're planning on congregating? You know, obviously summer school, no one has any electronic stuff. How does that work? How does it work for quarantines if someone's in summer school and now they have to be out for 2 weeks?
Yes, you're right. That's an unpopular topic, Noah, and we're all hoping that that is not the case again. But yes, the reality is this isn't necessarily just magically going away anytime real soon. And so part of the reason that we would put it at West Milwaukee Intermediate and Lane and Mitchell is that they are set up to be more spread apart. And so we'd have the opportunity to do some of those things. Some of our schools have gotten really good at distanced socialization and project-based learning in, 5 feet apart and 6 feet apart with masks on. So we have tools and resources available at some of those sites that are still going to allow for that learning, but allow for it in a way that still meets whatever health and safety requirements that we are, asked to comply with this summer based on the needs in our area.
Right, I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I just want to know
Yes.
that we're thinking about it, and that's it.
Right. So hopefully you did not just jinx us.
Nope. I'm not-
Yeah, we are really all hoping that that is not the case, but we'll be prepared for it just like anything else.
Okay, thank you.
Great.
That's it, for sure.
For now, till the next time.
You can email me if you have
Yeah.
more questions.
Any other comments on the HER? All right, before we adjourn, just real quick, I want to say thank you to Gary and Christine for their service to the board. Thank you so much for stepping up and being a part of this fraternity, sorority, organization, whatever you want to call it. So thank you very much for being selfless and being a part of this and all the work that you've done the last 3 years. So, and thank you to all of you for accepting me into this role as well. So I appreciate that. I'm going to get a little emotional, but I got 2 weeks yet before I'm actually done, but obviously this is the last meeting. But thank you all very much for everything, and best of luck in the next chapter and all the work that's yet to come. Jeff?
I would like to echo our thanks to you,
Yeah, thank you.
Stephanie, as well as both. I'm sure the other board members will share that, but as a district team, as you've been a really amazing board president. It's been such a delight to work with you and have you push us in all the right ways and yet support the work that we're trying to do a lot of the time as well. So I have greatly appreciated that. I know our director team has really appreciated that as well.
Thank you very much. Jeff?
I just wanted to thank you because I think you have been an outstanding president.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Well, with that, we will look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, last time, we are adjourned.